Hello, today we are going to be changing these spark plugs in a 2018 Alfa Romeo Stelvio. I'm going to show you pretty much in real time how I change the 4 spark plugs in this car. So let's go. These are the spark plugs you're going to need from NKG, and the great thing is they come pre-gapped. You don't have to worry about gapping them, and I purchased mine from sparkplugs.com. And there is the model number again. You're also going to need a 5/8 inch thin-walled spark plug socket. You're also going to need some various socket extension lengths, and I just needed to purchase these because I didn't have them in my toolbox. You're going to need a 10mm ratchet, a 10mm box wrench, a screwdriver, channel locks, your spark plug socket, some different extensions, a ratchet, and a torque wrench. And again, thin-walled socket. This one's on a swivel, 5/8 inch. It worked out great. Alright, so let's get to it. We're going to start by removing the stress bar. You're going to use your 10mm socket on the right side to undo the nut that's holding that stress bar in. Mine's flopping around because I had already removed it. This is just for demonstration. And what I like to do is just screwing the nut back on there so I don't lose it. Now the other side's a little harder to get to, which is why I had to use a box wrench. There's not enough room to get the socket in there, so I took the same size 10mm box wrench to loosen that nut. There it is, and I'm going to put that back on its post so I don't lose it, and that releases the strut tower stress bar, and we're going to put that off the side. Next, you got to remove your engine cover, so take your screwdriver and pop out those little protecting covers, and then you're going to go back to your 10mm. I put mine on a ratcheting screwdriver because it was easier to get down in there. And there's 2 10mm bolts that you unscrew, and that will release the front of the engine cover. I actually had to use a magnet to help get those out, and you're going to want to put those in a safe place for later. Moving on, that releases the front of the engine cover. In the back, there are 2 like little ball and socket things that they just pop out. I'll show you what they look like. Alright, so on the engine cover side is like the female socket end, and there's 2 little like balls there, and you just kind of gently, you can work them out and just pop them off with your hands and place that aside for later. So spark plug number 1, I'm going to use my 10mm ratcheting screwdriver to undo the nut on coil pack number 1. And once it's loose, all you got to do is, we're going to move that hose, big hose, out of the way in a moment. But really you just got to kind of wiggle it loose, and there's a rubber boot that will pop off of the spark plug. So sometimes it takes a little bit of monkeying with, and here it is. Carefully pull that boot out. I am not disconnecting the electrical connection that goes to that coil pack. And 6-inch extension on my spark plug socket. And it might take a little bit to get it started, but they should come out pretty easily. Alright, and once it's loose, I'm going to just hand twist it. I just find it easier that way. Hand twist it, and the spark plug will come right out. And there it is, a nice dirty spark plug. These things are real foul. This car had about 65,000 miles on it. They recommend that you change the spark plugs at 60,000 miles on this model car. So here's the new one from NKG. Again, they come pre-gapped. They're ready to go. You don't have to worry about gapping them. That's the wrong end. So I'm just going to show you the difference here. What I did do, I matched up the part numbers, and it is the same exact part number that came out of this car, so I know I'm good to go. And look at that nice clean spark plug. Ready to go in. Fabulous. Alright, so you're going to put the spark plug into the socket. It is magnetic, so it will hold the spark plug in there. And I'm going to manually, very carefully, gently thread it in. And once it's threaded, I'm just going to thread it in until it's hand tight. You don't want to cross thread these. You do want to take your time threading that. So once it's hand tight, I'm going to crank it with the ratchet till it's snug. Then I'm going to switch over to my torque wrench to finish it off. I like this style torque wrench. It's just what I learned on. You want to keep the handle kind of floating in the center of the post there, and that creates the torque, and it's just like a manual needle that will point to your pressure. And this spark plug requires 15 pounds. So I like to do it just kind of little by little, very carefully, gently. If you crank too hard, you could seize them in there. I've also cracked a spark plug by cranking on it too hard. You also want to make sure you're in a good angle too. Just take your time doing the installation and you should be fine. So the spark plug is properly seated and torqued to the 15-pound factory spec, and now you just need to reinstall the coil pack. So I'm going to very carefully bend that rubber boot so it gets back into the hole there, and just push it down with some pressure, and you'll feel it slide on to the spark plug. And once you tighten the bolt, that'll create a good seal there. I'm going to hand tighten that 10mm bolt, go back to my ratcheting screwdriver and tighten that up. There is a specific pressure to tighten these bolts, but I found once they're snug, that was good enough. Moving on to spark plug number 2, you got to release this clip, so you're just going to pull it back till it snaps, press down, and it'll just slip off. So here it is again. All you do is you pop that clip backwards. There's a little clip that slips back. Press down on it and it releases. That one's pretty easy to do. Now, like I said, I'm going to move this big hose out of the way, and I'm going to use my channel locks to loosen the clip that's on there, and I'm just going to pinch down on it and jockey it out of the way so I can free it up. I like to use a screwdriver on these hoses, and you just gotta sometimes they're stuck on there pretty good, so I use like a screwdriver just to help pry it away and create some space and kind of break the seal a little bit. And this one was a little bit stubborn, but just take your time. You don't want to split the rubber, and just kind of jockey it back and forth, and it'll eventually pop off. Now to remove coil pack number 2, I'm using my short socket, and then back to my screwdriver to undo that 10mm bolt on the coil pack. So with that connector and that hose out of the way, you have easy access to this. Undo the bolt, and again, you're just kind of wiggling it. That one came out easy. With just a little wiggle, it popped right out. And you're going to repeat the same thing. So I'm still using my 6-inch extension. It's a little hard to reach back there in this engine, so I need a little box to stand up on. So 6-inch extension on my spark plug socket. Break it loose. twist it, and once it's loose enough, I'm going to remove the ratchet and take it out by hand. And again, this spark plug socket is magnetic, so when it's loose, it'll help. When it's loose and I pull it out, it'll just come with it. And there we go, spark plug number 2. Nice and fouled. Let's get a fresh one. I love these NKGs. They're high performance and they're gapped, ready to go. Throw that away. Put the correct end into the socket, the magnetic socket, so that you can feed it down in there. You don't want your spark plug just dropping down in there. It's a long ways down. So carefully thread it, get it threaded, hand tighten it. I'm going to hit it with my ratchet to snug it up. Then I'm going to torque it to spec. Very carefully, very slowly, at a good right angle. Notice I'm using my left hand to secure it. You do not want to use excessive force, you'll crack your spark plugs. Alright, great, done. Put the boot back in its hole, seat that in there. And you're just going to keep repeating this process. Spark plug 3 is easy to get to, it's just you got to keep reaching further back here. So here we're on to number 3. Same process. See how easy this is. Unscrew the bolt on the coil pack. Jockey the coil pack loose. And again, there are electrical connectors attaching the coil pack, and I'm not even removing those. The clips are really tricky to remove those connections, and I saw someone else do it this way and it worked for me, so I'm not even going to monkey with those electrical connections. Just do it carefully and you should be fine. So there's 3. Coil pack is out. I'm gonna, sometimes they're snug to break them loose. They're also, look like corroded, as you can see, so you got to break that a little bit loose, but they should come out real easy. And number 3 coil pack goes back in. Just push them in there. Make sure it's seated good. Make sure you feel the connection onto the spark plug. So I do apologize that the camera was not running when I installed spark plug number 4. Number 4 is harder to get to because it's kind of underneath, back by the firewall. And here is where you need to utilize your shorter socket extensions to get back in there. But the process is the same, and you just need to utilize your different size sockets. This is why you need some shorter ones to get back in there underneath. Good luck with that, you should be fine. And that's it. Put it all back together. Don't forget to hook up that electrical connection, put that hose back in place, put the engine cover back on, pop those 2 rear grommets in, put those 2 front bolts in. This whole process maybe took me an hour, maybe a little bit longer because I was recording it. But here's the stress bar. There's just 2 bolts. This is really easy, and if you've got some basic mechanical knowledge and aren't afraid to tackle these things, it really shouldn't be too hard to do. This worked successfully for me. I had no problems when I started up the car. And it's running great now. So the whole job cost me about $60 in spark plugs. It cost me about $25, $30 in extra tools. And I don't even know what the dealership wants to charge, but probably 3 times that amount. I mean, I would assume that they want $200-300 or more to do this job. And there you have it. Hope this is helpful. Thanks for watching. Let's go for a test drive.